Recently, I asked the community what was the best way to divide the CK3 map into north and south. At first, I presented two options, option 1 and option 2. Over 3K people agreed it was option 1. Unfortunately for those people, I did not like that answer. So I decided to shop around a little more and to see what other people would come up with. And as you can see, there were several competing lines that divided. I took all of these into consideration and came up with this lovely divided map. Not exactly equal, but I think gives both sides a decent amount of land and resources. Now that we have the world divided in two, let's see who will come out on top in a little time lapse. Both sides have a monoculture and faith, as well as 100 development in each county. Also divided each hegemon into 3 empires, minus this part in Hispania that I forgot about and hopefully won't come back to bite me in the time lapse. Oh, and also everyone is administrative government. So let's see who will be the supreme hegemon in this north versus south time-lapse. And don't forget to subscribe. "739 years have passed in the North versus South time-lapse, and a total of 40 hours in real life. And honestly, not much has changed along these borders. The South has slowly lost territory, mostly in Persia and Anatolia. I'm actually surprised that AI hasn't taken more land, but that's probably due to the fact that both of them are administrative governments. That means they usually are limited to taking just a couple duchies per ruler, unless they use their kingdom invasion, which they get once per lifetime. This really shows that the AI isn't willing to recruit claimants and rip huge chunks out of the rivals' hegemons the way the player would do. Looking at the list of northern hegemons, they had 12 conqueror rulers in a row from the Ngzao family and still haven't moved the borders very much. My guess is that the wars between these supreme powers are incredibly difficult because both sides can field thousands upon thousands of troops. I really wish we had caught these two titans fighting each other just to see what the war looked like. Instead, there are only a handful of regional conflicts. Both hegemons are also sitting on an absurd amount of gold, but for some reason, they have very little influence. You'd think they'd be capped out on that currency, but maybe the AI isn't triggering enough events or pick the right options to generate it. Let's take a quick look at our progressions. First, we're going to look at faith. There are only 3 faiths left on the map: Tangriism, Bilikuism, and Old Bilikuism, clinging on with 9 counties. Not exactly a thriving religion. Culture-wise, there is a little bit more diversity. Mongol is still the dominant culture with 1,600 counties. Malaya coming in second place. At first, I thought it had converted to an Iberian culture group, but it turns out they're still their own distinct culture. Next up are artifacts. Somehow the Pope is still around, even though there are fewer than probably 20 Catholics left in the entire world. The oldest artifact is the crown of Justinian, now over 1,000 years old. It was once a treasured possession of the southern hegemon, but through inheritance, it ended up with the Karyu family, where it is passed down ever since. Finally, the wealthiest lands in the world are in the duchies of Valois, generating an incredible 650 gold per month. That's absolutely ridiculous amount of money. In the end, what have we learned? It seems like the AI is really slow at conquering with administrative government type. So why don't we run this once more with everything the same, except for instead of administrative governments, we have feudal governments. Let's see who will come out on top in the second version. We let this time lapse run a little longer to see if the South would completely eclipse the North. It didn't quite happen, but it is much closer to the outcome I was hoping for. A decisive Southern victory, or at least just a victory overall. It's kind of crazy that the Central North managed to break free after being conquered, but Northwest wasn't so lucky and eventually fell. The original time-lapse, I chose administrative government because I knew it would create a more stable world. But the downside was it took nearly twice as long to record, and there were very little border movement between the two giants, which honestly wasn't all that exciting to watch. The first thing I noticed with the feudal governments is just how much smaller their armies are, which probably explains why the simulation moved along so much faster. Right now, the South is invading Central North, and after 7 years, they've already suffered 151,000 casualties. It really makes you wonder how difficult it would be to reach 1 million casualties in a single war. My guess is you'd have to launch a crusade against one of the major faiths. Switching over to the government map mode, I noticed something really strange. A huge number of counties have converted to Wanua, the trade government that almost nobody knows about or uses since All Under Heaven was released. I'm not sure why the AI keeps gravitating towards it. We also saw far more civil wars inside both empires this time around, yet neither side ever managed to completely get destroyed. Having nearly universal culture and faith combined with extreme high development kept the realm stable enough to prevent total collapse. The South has also divided most of its territories between multiple empires. That makes managing such a massive realm easier, but comes at the cost of fewer taxes and levies. Oh, and some of the kingdom of Balea Tyrannia is still hanging around. The North is barely holding it together at this point. It is probably only a generation or two from full collapse. It would actually be really fun to jump into the save and try to restore the North, except I forgot to enable endless mode, so if I load in as one of the characters, it immediately gets a game over. This time, we ended up with 3 statues of Constantine. Now, the oldest artifacts in the world at 1300 years old. They all have identical stats. The Pope has finally been dethroned as well, although that seems to have happened fairly recently. Since the South controls more of the world, Tangarism has taken a noticeable hit. Even so, Mongolic remains the more widespread culture. It's probably because the AI doesn't like converted culture nearly as much as it converted religion. The wealthiest duchies are also making significantly much more money. Maybe that's because the baronries have more time to develop. Maybe feudalism simply generates more income, or more likely the ledger has broken somewhere because these numbers don't really add up. So why did the South ultimately win this time lapse? Comes down to how it uses its CBs. The South successfully installed a claimant over most of the central North, giving it a massive terrain swing, enough momentum that the North never really recovered. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so very much for watching. If you enjoyed this little time lapse, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all the things. And I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.